Welcome to Full Embrace. We're Summer
and Michelle, two life coaches exploring life's
messy
beautiful
and powerful moments together.
every part of life.
Embraced. Hello and welcome back.
Hello, friends.
So, anger. We're going to talk about being angry today.
Woo woo.
Anger.
Yeah, Summer coached me a few weeks ago, and it was about anger. I had a Reiki session, and during the session, I was feeling great. Like I felt like I had lots of insight, and at the end, she usually processes with me, and she prefaced what she was going to say with, "I don't think you're going to like what I say." And she's like, "I felt a lot of anger all over your body." And I was just so surprised by that. It's like, huh, okay. And then she was like, "Have you let God know how angry you are? Have you just let them have it?" Like, why would I do that type of a response? So,
Yeah. And when I heard that, I was like, well, maybe you should ask God to know if that's true, that you are holding a lot of anger.
yeah.
Do you remember the answer to that?
Yeah, I didn't really get an answer to that question. So I just said anger still feels scary to me. I had this response after she left the room during that session. I just spontaneously started crying with this thought of this idea of embracing anger, like allowing anger to just be in me. And so I was telling God, like, anger still feels scary to me, and kind of asked, like, what do you want me to know about anger? And God said, it's safe to feel it. You can feel anger. And then I said, how do I do that safely? Teach me how to do that. So now, where in your body, notice and welcome it. Be curious about anger. Describe it. Be a friend to your anger. Recall anger and share it with us. You're safe to feel and express anger. Feel its power. Learn the goodness and purpose of anger. And then I had like some false beliefs that were coming up about anger.
Okay, you just said a whole lot.
I
I don't
did.
think we can move on yet. I'll tell you what stood out to me, and then you can add what stood out to you in that. But you are safe to feel and express anger. And then you said something about goodness and purpose. What did you say?
Yeah, learn the goodness and purpose of anger, which felt so foreign. My experience with anger has not been goodness and has not been purposeful. It's felt unsafe.
Right. And for anyone listening, you also might feel that too and be like, what? Goodness and purpose and anger? I don't think so.
Right? Yeah.
Uh, Feel free to pause the recording or ponder for a minute what kind of goodness or purpose there could be in anger. Why don't we start there? Then we'll move on. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah. It's still um a few weeks later a little bit foreign to me, but I've been drawn to this idea of power. Anger is a really power-filled sensation. It feels just powerful. I've wondered if my own power feels unsafe, or that's what I'm afraid of, is the power of anger. And maybe at some level, I'm just afraid to be powerful. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the purpose and the goodness I'm finding as I'm exploring and feeling anger.
And I assume, like all of us, we have had people in our lives express anger in ways that did not have any goodness and didn't feel purpose filled. And I think having those experiences makes it feel scary because some of those experiences are scary when people act out anger instead of feeling and expressing it in ways that are maybe more
Constructive, I guess,
constructive,
like moving us into action.
purposeful.
Yeah, purposefully, definitely. I think my fear of anger came from it being expressed in a way that felt dangerous or unsafe, and like I felt diminished and just frightened. So I think it makes sense that maybe I have made anger in general feel unsafe, but haven't allowed myself to feel the full power or force of the benefits of feeling anger and what it would create for me because it's just felt so unsafe.
I think it might be appropriate to say this podcast is not encouraging you to lash out in anger or act inappropriately in anger, or and inappropriately, dangerously to yourself or to others.
Or condoning anyone who does. We're not saying
Yes.
it's okay.
No.
So I guess for me, my exploration of anger has been, do I make anger mean? What are like my beliefs associated with anger, right? I notice like goodness and purpose, I would never have equated with anger, right? So that was wisdom given to me. And I was like, huh? So kind of a self exploration of what are my thoughts and feelings towards anger? Can I even find it in my body anywhere? When does it show up? How does it show up?
Some of us have gotten very good at suppressing anger. And I think as women in the United States anyway, it hasn't been very acceptable or accepted for women to
Yeah.
be angry.
Or encouraged, even, like discouraged, like frowned upon. Yeah.
And in a lot of different belief systems, uh, it's a shameful thing to be angry.
Mhm. And yet it's a common human emotion, common human experience. So part of her telling me she felt it everywhere in my body, I'm like, whoa, I've really been suppressing anger. I have a lot of judgment about anger. I have a lot of fear associated with anger.
And going back to that list you read off, I chose goodness and purpose to stand out to me. What stood out to you?
Those 2 words were the ones that were not what I associate with anger at all. It was like, "What?"
You read a whole list really quickly.
Yeah, I can read it again.
And maybe just one sentence at a time.
Yeah, when I asked God, "How do I safely practice feeling anger?" God said, "Notice and welcome it."
Notice and welcome. What would that look like?
I guess be aware of when you're feeling anger and don't push it away. Open to it. When I think welcome, I think open arms or open hands and maybe not even the stance of fear, this protection of it.
After the conversation that Michelle and I had, I have been paying attention to when I feel angry. And I got angry the other day and I noticed my habit is to shift quickly from anger to sadness, but the sadness kind of brought in a feeling of defeat. And then I was like, wait, I'm going to go back to anger. Like I intentionally brought myself back to the feeling of anger. And it was so interesting how the tears automatically went away. And I was like, no, I can state myself clearly and not feel defeat. I can stay in this place. I feel like I have a reason to be angry. And it was fascinating. I've never done that before. It was like a switch that I didn't notice I was turning off. And then I turned it back on and I was like, huh, this feels different.
Yeah, the feeling of defeat, I'm in the habit of doing that also. So just you verbalizing that and sharing that experience is really powerful because defeat is this downtrodden, depressed type experience, but to be angry feels full of power, not defeat.
Yeah,
So fascinating.
it is so fascinating. And I strongly believe that we have been given all of the emotions to feel. And it kind of helps us to either stay in balance or to experience the opposite emotions more intensely and fully. When we try to restrict or those quote unquote unacceptable feelings, one, I don't think they really go away. You store them in your body.
No, I know how to do that.
Yeah. I'll even say a 3. 2, it makes it to where you numb not only those emotions, but the other ones that you wanna feel also get a little bit deadened because you're not allowing your body to feel.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then the third thing I was just gonna say is, like, with the low, it it feels so good to feel the high sometimes. I'm thinking about this last couple of weeks. I was very sick. I had a very hard time breathing. And the last 2 or 3 days, relief. I would not feel so good right now and so much relief and gratitude if I had not had that experience, an intense experience of focusing on having to breathe.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I thought, "Oh, when I shut down anger, I'm missing a part of myself. There's a part of myself I'm not allowing to be human, to be alive. Like I'm missing that power filled part of me, that purposeful, like motivating part of me that anger offers. And I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to miss her anymore. Maybe she's purposeful. Maybe I need anger in my life instead of just storing it in my body.
I noticed that feeling the anger the other day allowed me to have a new level of acceptance
Right.
for me. And I'm not saying when you're angry, you're in the right. But when I allowed myself to feel it, I didn't stay in a place of blame and shame. And it's easy for me to bounce back between those two if I try and push anger away.
Mhm.
But instead, it was almost like, okay, I'm going to feel this. And then my defenses dropped. And I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. And I'm sorry. It allowed my body to relax. And it sounds so crazy. It sounds so backwards,
Not to be
right?
defeated or defending.
Well, and also the anger created like relax in me.
Yeah. Yeah. It let your guard down because you were feeling safe to feel anger. Instead of defending ourselves or feeling defeated when we suppress it. That's so fascinating. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do. I have that association of blame and shame with anger. And I think exactly like you said, it's because I haven't allowed myself to feel it that I go back and forth between those two. Yeah, so instructive
And we're not always blaming and shaming someone else. Sometimes we're blaming and shaming ourselves.
for feeling it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Mm, so yeah, at one point a few weeks ago, during the coaching, you asked me to make an anger list. And I was so resistant. I was like, what? An anger list? What is the purpose in that? What would that create? I was so resistant to it. And then once I started the list, I was like, okay, it is actually in me, all this anger. I got I got a list I'm not allowing to be real, but it's certainly present.
I excitedly wrote my list too.
Regardless of how we suppress our feelings, we have easy access to them when we open up to making a list or open up to, wow, maybe there is some goodness or purpose in this emotion.
I think at some point you said be a friend to your anger. Did you say
Oh,
that
yeah, I'll
yet?
go back to my list. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see. Be curious about anger, where it is in your body, describe it. Be a friend to your anger.
Right.
That was also really foreign. Well, anger's the enemy. What do you mean, be a friend?
Ooh. Notice especially with kids because I have kids and I see them associate with other kids. And usually when there's anger, there's something going on. Either, they aren't able to express themselves or there's an internal need that they haven't yet had met. And as adults, most of us have not mastered that or even realized that that's part of the reason anger kind of peeks its head out.
Mm, there's an unmet need. Yeah, I was with my 4-year-old granddaughter last week after we had this coaching conversation about anger and she felt so angry because she wasn't getting what she wanted. And at one point she comes up to me to tell me, to inform me about what just happened. And I said, "Are you feeling angry?" And she says, "Yes, I'm so angry." And I said, "Me too." And we just, this forceful, clenched hands and everything. And she was just stomping around, the physical power of it, stomping around. And she has a almost 2-year-old little brother. And she was describing, "I'm mad," and just stomping around. And he loves to mimic her. And he was just like, "I'm mad," and started stomping around just like her. So just so great to see this is just a natural human experience. Age 2, age 4, age whatever. Like, it's just part of being human.
Uh, the thought came to me that anger invites clarity.
Hmm. Yeah. I've kind of felt like it helps me connect with what need or injustice or what I feel is important that's not being addressed, that's not being met, that's not being acknowledged. Like there's this deeper level of value or importance that anger makes me aware of. And if I'm pushing it away, if I'm suppressing it, I'm missing that part of me.
And well, you're missing that part of you internally. And also, you can't show up for that thing that you want to change
Mm,
if you
mhm,
suppress it.
mhm.
Because then it goes to defeat, sadness, fear.
Right. Yeah, it shuts down my access to desire and what I want because I'm feeling defeated. I'm feeling afraid. I'm not willing even to acknowledge the need that isn't being met, even though I'm feeling really angry about it. I'm in this anger and not allowing the anger to show me what's present in it, I guess.
This definitely takes some awareness. It takes awareness to be able to take yourself out of it and I feel anger. This is anger. And once you can do that, it's almost like you can start to play with it a little bit instead of letting it overtake you and acting out.
Right, right. I kind of have this question coming up like, does anger always need expressed? Does it need an outlet? What? And I don't know that I know the answer to it, but it seems like anger has some outward expression or movement towards it, but when we don't feel it, it remains internal. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of like it becomes a defeat, right? An internal defeat if I'm not outwardly expressing it or meeting that need or requesting, setting a boundary, expressing it somehow outwardly.
And that could look like a lot of things. And it doesn't have to look like how it looks in the movies or for some reason, like a picture of the alcoholic comes to mind who is breaking things and yelling and hurting people.
Yeah, the destructive side of anger.
And that's not, again, what we're talking about. I think that is a way of suppressing the feeling.
Yeah, you're not actually letting anger do its work in you. You're just exploding on everybody else. I think anger does give us this outward, I don't know, like this force, this way of showing up, or this opportunity to show up in the world with action, with decision, with certainty, versus the destructive way of just exploding all over everybody.
Well, it
Um,
naturally infuses us with energy. And energy, I think, is meant to create motion. And
Mhm.
like you said, that could be setting a boundary. It could be so many different things, but it's a way to give us motivation to move, change, and make a difference.
Yeah. It feels to me like anger can give us access to what we value and what is important so that we can express that, make that a reality in our world. And when I'm suppressing it, I'm already defeated myself. Like that isn't valuable, that isn't important. But if I let anger have its space, I have greater access to what is important to me. It's a bit of this feeling of injustice, right? Maybe anger gives you access to what is just.
Yes. And you said something about being bigger. I think also it gives us permission to take up space in a healthy way if we use it in a healthy way. And that suppression you were talking about made me think of like a squashing it down, and that makes us small.
Mhm.
And it also doesn't just make us small, suppressing it intensifies it, like it,
Yeah, the space that it dwells in is even smaller.
yeah,
Mm.
which can be dangerous. And maybe that's why people explode sometimes because they keep suppressing and suppressing and suppressing, and it all bottles up, and it's like,
Can't hold it
of
anymore.
yeah, instead of the carbonation just sizzling out a little bit at a time.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I love the explanation of energy because when I allow myself to feel angry, it's this increase in energy and power. Like I've just expanded. And if I allow myself to be present in that expansion, there's more of me. When I suppress it, there's less, there's of me. Like, and I've just ignored that part, that need, that desire.
And on a side note, I wonder if we do that enough times that can create fear and anxiety inside us.
We end up feeling afraid of that part of us, and we're ignoring that part of us too. So we tend to disconnect, stay small,
Mm.
stay defeated. Yeah, it feels like constructive anger or just feeling anger in your body is like this motivating force, outward, forward, for change on the inside, for change on outside of us. It's a, it's can be a fuel for change, for empowerment, for showing up bigger and more in our life instead of the shrinking and less and smaller.
It's a powerful tool of awareness, too, of what our desires, needs, or even misconceptions are.
Mm, mhm, for sure.
Beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had in the coaching 2 weeks ago, as I was having those conversations with God, I had some false beliefs come up attached to memories. And one of them was anger and love don't coexist. They can't be together. You either have one or you have the other. You can't have both. And what came up was if you're angry at me, you don't love me. Those two couldn't coexist in another human being. If you're expressing anger towards me, I was making it mean you don't love me. So, of course, that's a childlike interpretation, but it was interesting that that's what came up. And attached with that, it was anger and God don't coexist. Like if I define God as love, then if I'm feeling angry, God isn't present. So just interesting the meanings that were coming up as I was opening up to this idea of anger being something purposeful or something good. The false beliefs were showing up. This is what I want to dissolve in you. It's really fascinating. So maybe it's an invitation to open up ourselves more to this experience, human experience of anger and what noticing it, make an anger list, be open to the purpose or the goodness or just what your own experience of anger is. What meanings do you have attached to it? Where is anger in your body? What does it feel like? What does it create for you? You can even recall a time when you were angry and bring those feelings back up within you and try to be
Yes.
present with them.
And notice if you teeter totter into a different emotion to
Mm,
try and get out of anger. And what I always love to do in the moment, I name it, I'm feeling angry. Why? Like, what thought right now, what's going on in my mind that is creating anger for me? So, something I'm thinking is making me angry.
hmm,
And what is it that I can address? And that might mean I need to talk to someone. That might mean I need to nourish myself in a certain way. I remember the other week you mentioned that you felt like anger was equivalent to blame. Like if
uh,
you're angry with God, then you're blaming God.
yeah, and I have this narrative that blame doesn't create anything useful. So I had this resistance about blaming God. And I think since then, I'm like, no, God takes ownership. Like we can blame God all we want. God can take it. God's much bigger than any blame I might associate with them. And I may choose not to blame other people. I think I prefer to take responsibility and own my own choices and the consequences of them. So yeah, I think I'm okay blaming God. I think God's okay with me blaming them. I haven't always felt that way. Like so much judgment about anger and blame and
If God is perfect and has perfect love and self confidence, they can take the blame and not feel defensive because they know that it's not really theirs to hold.
right. It's just where I'm at and what I'm feeling and no judgment about it. It's interesting. This coaching happened, was it right before Holy Week or within Holy Week? The Saturday came and I was reading about something that described Saturday as like struggle and silence, but it was also like this anger, like let God have it, like just wail and mourn and stomp your feet and have a tantrum on Silent Saturday. That darkness and that In that pain and agony, God is still present and can sit in the depth of the darkness of humanity. And it just felt like so much permission to feel the fullness of being human. Just like I can even feel all that anger and injustice and blame, and I can direct it at God, and God will not love me any less or any more, right? Just be me being more honest with myself.
And with God.
Yeah, about all of my feelings and the depravity and frustration, that's also okay. That's something that I can embrace, and I can be held in that too. Not just all the good, happy feelings, not just the resurrection, Sunday, but I can also be held in the silent, dark Saturdays of life. God's there too. So gives me permission to be there also, not turn away from it, not suppress it, pretend it's not a part of my life.
And when we try to go to God pretending that we're not angry or sad or frustrated, it's hard to create real communication
Mm.
and feel connected with God because we're not being vulnerable.
Yeah, we're keeping a part of ourselves back, closed
Yeah.
off, not accessible.
Creates that vulnerability that creates connection.
Mhm. Yeah, I do like being aware of when we first notice anger and where we go from there. I think that's really instructive, whether or not we go into this place of defeat or judgment or suppression, sadness, resignation. Those needs aren't going to get met. I'm not important. What stories follow the first feelings of anger? And can we let those inform us about our internal relationships with different feelings? And I think that can be really instructive and informative on what parts of ourselves need further exploration or acceptance, compassion, acknowledgement. Yeah. I think certain emotions for me feel safer than others to feel. Sadness. I'm happy to be sad, maybe more than some other people. That's a really comfortable, familiar emotion for me. Anger, doesn't feel so safe, doesn't feel as familiar, feels like this foreign country or foreign territory where there's a lot of unknowns, of unpredictability, a lot of fear still, and that's okay. Yeah, I think it's just so interesting how our experiences with certain people when we're young and how our little brains try to make sense of what we experience, and just anger felt so uncontrollable. I just felt so small, so afraid. I think a part of me just decided that that wasn't an okay emotion to feel or to have. And as raising my kids, I used to say stuff like hate and anger are powerful, but love is more powerful. It was just a way that I learned to cope with, or not cope with, right, these feelings of anger, because it just felt unsafe at the total judgment level, not divine, not acceptable to feel angry or be angry or, yeah, I clearly had these very young interpretations of anger.
I noticed a few days ago, my daughter almost like patted me on the back or gave me a high five because she was like, wow, mom, all of these things just happened and you didn't get angry.
Hmm.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting. She has that belief that that was good on me. and it wouldn't have been if I had gotten angry. And I do feel like that has been part of the work of my lifetime is to quote unquote control my anger
Mhm.
and not feel angry. So this throws everything
Right.
a little bit for a loop, but I don't think it's a whole lot different. I think it's just changing from controlling
I have this word coming up, to surrendering to it.
to surrendering. Oh, that's fascinating. To working with it, to, yes, both of those things, just to using it for purpose.
And goodness,
Mm.
instead of the other side of anger, the dark side of anger, which is for destruction or diminishing or creating fear.
It seems like a good time to reiterate when we jump into sadness from anger too quickly, we don't see the value anger is offering us or the question, the
Even like the invitation of it,
invitation, the invitation.
it's inviting me to know myself at a level that I don't yet experience myself. So it's like anger as an invitation.
And if we do make the jump into sadness, it brings resignation. It keeps us
Defeat.
where we are, feet, and we don't feel the same energy or motivation to fight injustice.
Ooh,
Instead, we resign and shrink
yeah.
to a quote unquote reality that we already have.
Yeah, it keeps us the same. We don't transform. We don't show up for ourselves in a new, more empowered way. We stay the same. So maybe anger is an invitation to show up in a new, more powerful, compassionate way for ourselves and in life.
Something you said during that coaching was anger is empowering? What?
I walked away from there like, oh, maybe that's what I'm really afraid of is my own power. So I haven't allowed myself really feel the power that anger opens me up to, like gives me access to.
Yeah.
So maybe it's much easier to suppress it because then I don't really know how powerful I am.
And you said, or at least I typed up, it's easier to feel resigned and powerless. You don't have to act, you don't have to show up.
Yeah, I'm conserving all kinds of energy by suppressing the energy I'm feeling, right? It's just storing in my body somewhere for my Reiki master to find and reveal to me. Yeah, yeah, I think that's true. I think I felt much more comfortable being small. That's much more familiar.
We talked about Martin Luther King Jr. and how he channeled his anger and frustration to make change, to be constructive.
It's like a stand for what we feel is good and right and true. First, I think he had to stand up for what he knew he valued, and then stand for other people who couldn't stand for themselves. So that's really a beautiful way to show up for ourselves and for everyone.
Here's another good quote from the coaching session. Maybe we're so afraid of anger because we haven't seen enough example of powerful, productive, empowering ways of change.
Yeah, and I think the destructive ways of change are maybe what's reported or sensationalized, right? Our brains go to the worst case and we see the worst case more often. We can see what's wrong with the world rather than what's good and true and right. So, for sure.
Sometimes we equate anger with hate.
Mm.
And you said this earlier, but you used the word lack of love.
Mhm.
and hate feels powerless. You maybe said possibly powerless to get our needs met, but hate and anger are two different things. We're learning that. We're unraveling that.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to associate anger and hate. They feel like cousins. One feeds on the other. What's interesting is to associate anger and love as also cousins. Anger could drive you to love your neighbor at a deeper level than you maybe currently are, or have you show up representing what's good and just in society. So I guess, like all emotions, anger has a light and a shadow to it, and we get to decide how we want to show up with our feelings of anger.
Yes. And we get to ask questions and be curious and find out, is there a contradiction of my values? What action can I take to align myself better with those values?
Right. Yeah, and show up in our lives more full of our own power instead of shrinking from the power of anger and the energy of anger. How can we use it as a fuel for goodness and for purpose and more aliveness?
Yes. I want to mention this too. I think at some point you said, I can be angry with Jesus instead of without.
Yeah, that's one of the beliefs that came up, that anger and God couldn't coexist. Like if I was feeling angry, then I was without God. And God was like, oh, no, let's dissolve that one today. I can be angry with God. Like I can be angry and still be in God's presence. And I can be angry at God also, and God's still present. Yeah, so that was one of those things that God was, here's another false belief we're gonna reveal and dissolve today. So that was lovely.
And that makes anger feel more safe if we sit in it with God.
Yes. Instead of this belief of, if I'm like fear based, if I feel angry, I leave God or God leaves me. Anger would totally feel unsafe to feel, or to even stay in the presence of someone else who is expressing their anger in a destructive way. Totally unsafe, like logically.
Yeah, and I experienced that too since our conversation. Having someone be angry with me, or I don't even know if they were angry with me or just angry. And I was with them and I was like, hmm, it just changed my whole receiving of that moment
Mm, hmm
because I didn't have to feel like I needed to protect myself,
hmm
to put up a boundary. I could just be there in love with them as they
hmm
were angry. It didn't mean
Right.
anything about me. It didn't mean anything about them.
You didn't take it on. So lovely. Yeah. How about that? Anger.
How about that?
Who knew? Not I, for sure.
And I just want to offer you, if you are with someone who's angry and they're in a place where they can hear you, think or ask God what kinds of questions you can ask them that help maybe draw out some of the awareness of what kind of change do you want to see happen? What can you do to use that energy for a
Hmm.
good, solid purpose?
Yeah. Or even naming it for them. Oh, seems to me like you're feeling angry, like I do with my granddaughter. She's like, yeah, I'm so angry, and stomped around. And after she felt it for long enough, she lightened up. It kind of left her. And the next day, when she was feeling angry again, she was like, I'm so angry. And then she started laughing, right? Her immediate response was she was pretending that she was angry and that it was funny. Just so much permission in allowing ourselves and others to feel the power of anger and see it as an invitation.
And I want to invite each of you If someone came to your mind while listening to this, that might be an invitation to share it with them.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing this space with us as we explore so many different things.
And you're free to feel any kind of thoughts about what we've said.
And free to feel angry as much as you need.
We support you in that.
Yeah.
Hope you can feel love even in your anger.
Every part of life.
Embraced.